Here we are, 10 tips to help you win football games. Two-thirds of us here to talk about it, and we're on tip number 5. Tip number 5. Avoid coaching scared, Mike. One of my favorite things to talk about, not being scared. Flat was so scared he didn't even join us. But we're not scared, so we're here to talk about it, and it should be fun. And when we say don't coach scared, what that means really is have some confidence. I make the argument a lot of times on social media and things when we're doing these presentations that confidence is the most important thing you can put into your players, that there's not a magic offense or defense or special teams or weight program. Confidence is what you need. Now, you get confidence through the weight room. You get confidence through being competent on offense or defense or having a good special teams plan and all that stuff. But you also get confidence by your coach not coaching scared. And this is easy to say when me and you don't plan on losing any games this year.
That's right.
But you got to let your actions match your confidence. You got to do some things to show the team that you're interested in winning this game and you're willing to go for it. And I know the obvious thing is fourth downs, but let's talk about some of the things you can avoid, some of the different ways you can avoid the coach scared. And this is really a big tip for me. I think you can show your players confidence by not coaching scared. I didn't say don't coach stupid. I'm not personally a fan of never punting. I'm not personally a fan of onside kicking every time. I'm not really advocating for that extremism. I'm saying find some ways to have faith in your players, believe in them, show them you believe in them, and go. And so I purposely made this one first, Michael, because it's not the obvious one people are thinking of. Tell your guys to catch the damn punt. The thing that really always stood out to me, and talk about coaching scared. The obvious thing about coaching scared is go for it on fourth down, fake punt, run some trick plays, kick an onside kick occasionally. Those are things we're going to talk about in a minute. But I think what really is a microcosm for this tip, what I hope people get across is catching them. How often do you tell your kids, we're going to win on Friday? We got this. We're doing great. We're better than them, and then they're going to punt to you. And you're thinking it's 3rd and 8. They throw an incompletion. Incompletion, 4th and 8. Punt return, let's go. Punt return goes out there. The minute the ball hits the guy's foot, everybody, Peter. You put the guy 58 yards back where nobody could ever kick him the ball, and then scream Peter the minute it gets kicked because you're terrified he's going to fumble or you just want the ball back, whatever. Now, like everything, is there an exception to the rule? Absolutely. Maybe late in the 4th quarter, don't put anybody back. That's fine. But for the most part, catch the punt. I thought we gained a huge advantage on people, 10, 12 yards on average per punt, just by making a big deal about catching a punt. And I told our punt returners, look, unless that thing is shanked and we have to go Peter, it is your job to go get the ball. Even if it bounces once in front of you, you can catch it, get a few yards. I had confidence in our kids to do that. Now, in hundreds of football games, did we fumble 1 or 2? Yeah, sure we fumbled. I really can't even think of one, to be honest. But I do know we fumbled a couple punts in, hundreds and hundreds of games. But it was well worth those 2 or 3 fumbles to get those thousands of yards that we got. But more important than thousands of yards, we told our punt return guys, quit being scared. Catch the punt. Go get some yards. And it permeates into the attitude of the team. So before we even get into the other ones, tell us about some punting, Michael.
I think just some of the stuff you're talking about, like it's this another way to say this, it's just how you build confidence in your team. Like you have to show them that you have faith in them to go out there and do what you expect them to do. So that equates to, yes, catching punts, going for it on 4th downs, whatever your list of things here of different things. But, it's how are you showing these kids that you have faith in them, that you trust them to go out there and do what needs to be done in order to win this game. And that's, I think, what we're trying to say here with this avoid trying to be scared thing. Just, go out. I mean, the amount of people that go out there and they have no faith in any of this stuff. Like, what are y'all doing at practice all the time? Like, you should be building up this confidence and doing these things. If you don't have any confidence going to that game, then them kids aren't going to have any. So you're going to go. You're going to coach scared. They're going to play scared. So it's your job to push them and to force them into these places where they're confident and comfortable in these situations.
No, that's right. And you want to. Nobody's going to believe you're going to win if you don't believe you're going to win. Nobody's going to believe, and this is into a whole nother realm that's not really exactly what the spirit of this series is about. But, there's a self-fulfilling prophecy both ways. If you're terrified you're going to fumble punts, guess what's going to happen? You're going to fumble a punt. If you treat your kids like, we got this, then the vast majority of the time it's going to work and they're going to be aggressive and it's going to pay off. But if, for the occasional times you fumble, you play the odds on that, and you move on. And coaches sometimes really struggle with that. They really struggle to play the percentages. And catching punts, to me, just going back to that one, before I even talk a little bit about some of these other ones, is really how you can show your team, hey, we're not scared. We're ready to go. And I really thought it was a huge advantage for us over the years. That's why I'm added to the series. The next thing I wrote was going for it on fourth down. Look, I'm not an advocate of going for it on 4th and 10 from the -7 or something. I'm not saying you go for it on fourth down all the time, but high school football people go for it more than they do in college and NFL anyway, because you don't have punters and kickers and all that as much. But in general, possessing the football is a major tip to winning the game. So how many times, Michael, did we beat people and we scored to start the game? We get a stop and we score again. It's 14-0 halfway through the first quarter, and they pretty much just let us beat them. And part of that came from getting up 2 scores. And I thought part of the reason we got up 2 scores was because they gave up the ball too easy. Like, if we just went down the field and scored on you really quickly, and you had 4th and 2 at midfield, yeah, sure, if you don't get it, we get the ball at midfield. But if we just went down the field and scored on you really quickly, you probably need to keep going for it. You probably need to try to get that first down and possess the ball and try to make this thing 7-7 more than you need to just do whatever an NFL team would do or a college team would do. A common tip that we said every week is, you are not a damn NFL coach. You are not a college coach.
Percentages are way different.
Quit playing the percentages that they play. And I do think high school coaches, not all of them, but I mean, we're trying to help people. We're not trying to talk bad about you. We're trying to help. But one of the ways I'm trying to help is tell people, play the high school percentage.
Right.
Yeah, on 4th and 2 at midfield, hell, 4th and 5 at midfield sometimes. You're punting in the NFL, and you're probably punting in college.
Absolutely.
But maybe on your height, and maybe you say, well, but we had a good punter, coach. I don't care if you had a good punter. That's not what we're talking about. It's about, do you giving up that possession and giving that other team the football? Even if you give it to them at the 20 versus the 50, it might have been worth it to take that risk to give it to them at the 50 to try to possess the football. That possession of the football is very important. Going for it on 4th down is important to winning, but it also shows your kids that you're not scared. You will go for it. You believe in them. And that does permeate into – go ahead.
Well, this is just, I think, one of the many things that's changed in football in the past 10 years or so, that you used to, it was totally different. Even when we first started coaching, we always used to make a joke, like, you had the right punt, they can't take it away from you. It was much more common for the defense to be the better part of the team than the offense. And that's just not true anymore. Like, the way football is played now, offenses are almost always going to be better than the defenses on good teams.
That's right.
And so you got to play to those percentages now. I think the old percentages where you punted because your defense was your better part of your team. Now I think you have to, as good as your defense is, it's hard to shut people out. It's hard to hold people to 14 points. If they're good, they're going to score. Offenses have a huge advantage. And so the more possessions you have, that is the one thing that is, maybe becoming more like college or NFL. I think that, you're going to score more points. And the more times you can convert those 4th downs, and we've told stories like this before about, we've lost games before because we couldn't get a team off the field. We'd stop them on 3rd down, they'd go for it on 4th and get it. It's just it's the more plays you can run on offense, the better you can be in football today.
Well, and that's a key. But I will say this, Michael, that this whole list, catch punts, go for it on fourth down, fake punt, trick plays, onside, deep shots. These are things that I have been doing, and Michael and I both, we coached together obviously the whole time, but we were doing the whole time. The first game I ever was the head coach in, we fake punted for a touchdown. We threw a halfback pass for a touchdown. Like this, how I rolled. I didn't feel like many other people did. I think that number is growing. You know what I mean? I don't think we're preaching. We're preaching to the choir a little bit today, probably on some of this, and that makes me happy. But if we're not preaching to the choir, then you might want to jump on board. And I'm not talking about advocating for stupid stuff.
Right.
I'm saying catch the damn punt. When it's 4th and 2, quit being scared. The other thing is when you have 4 downs to get a first down instead of 3, just, basic math, your chances go way up. So give yourself 4 play calls instead of 3 to get the first down a lot. You'll be surprised how you'll score more often. You just will. So the next one is fake punt. Fake punts have a higher success rate. Now sometimes people come up with some cockamamie fake punts now. We might need to have a whole episode on what constitutes a decent fake punt. But I'm just saying, don't be scared. There is a time in the game and place to just say, you know what? Let's see if we can get one here. Trick plays. Let me tell you about my thought on trick plays. Trick plays are another thing that we would see be high percentage success. So one of the reasons we ran so much empty, this is going to seem like it's going to take a minute for this point to be proven here, Michael, but one of the reasons we ran so much empty on offense was because I always self-scouted our defense and our opponent's offenses and helped Michael with that. And it got to a point where we would spend, 1/10 of the install, 1/10 of the season practicing empty stuff. We had to have all these empty checks. We had to do this. We had to do this. We had to do this for empty. And we made a big deal about putting it in preseason. We made a big deal about make sure we were ready for it every week. We had all these calls, whatever. One year, the year I really went to this more, I think we saw 6 plays of empty all year. Now, this wasn't that long ago. It may have been 10 years ago, but I'm saying I'm not talking about 30 years ago. We only saw like 6 plays. Nobody ever did it. And then one other year it was like we saw 25 plays and we're spending 10% of our time on this. So I'm like, look, we're going to make people line up to this. If everybody's so worried about it, we're going to make them line up. The same thing we look at for trick plays. When people ran trick plays, we saw them to have a high percentage. The first tip, Michael, was about efficiency. What I found was trick plays are fairly efficient, meaning they work a lot. But people don't call them. They get scared in the game. And then you'll call that bullshit ISO play over and over that's going to get 1 yard or no yards. But you won't just throw it out there and see if you can run a double pass or a halfback pass. Yeah, it very well may be an incompletion. But so was that play you were probably going to call anyway. But if this play works, it's big time. And we ran a double pass that I'm serious when I tell you we probably were 80 or 90% efficient on that play. It was unbelievable how high of a percentage play that was. Now we practiced it, we were good at it, but mainly we just weren't scared to call it. And we used our sideline. We only called it when we knew we could get it to our sideline. And there was certain stuff that we did to make sure we got the look we wanted, but don't be scared to call them trick plays. What you got to say about any of that, Michael, before we get to the last couple?
Yeah, I think that just that goes back to the stuff we were talking about earlier. It's like, any trick play can be a good play for you. You just have to work. You got to practice it. You got to have confidence in it. You got to have your kids have got to have confidence in it. So, I think you are 100% right. And I think that's another thing. I think you see more of that today.
You do see more.
Than you used to see. I think that's another one of the things that people have kind of grasped a hold of, a trick play is not necessarily what it used to be, but they're typically big plays for you. And if, you run it a couple times a game, you'd be shocked what it does to the defense,
Yeah, to make
if you run a halfback pass, that safety's a little bit worried about it every time you run that toss out there. If they know at some point in this game there's going to be a halfback pass because there's one every game.
If you're going to throw an incompletion, either way, you'd been better off throwing the incompletion on a trick play.
Right.
And I think people are figuring that out. And don't get me wrong now, I'm not advocating people don't have a base offense. I think people understand that. I mean, I'm saying a trick play, like something unique. But you can call one a game. What I like to do is have 7 or 8 trick plays. And I like to have about 2 of them ready every game. So, you know, throughout the whole season, you're going to see all 7 or 8 of them, maybe twice, but definitely once, maybe twice all year. You know, and we practice them all the time. We just kind of scroll through them when we could. Kids like stuff like that too, by the way. And it looks like you're not coaching scared. Next thing, onside kick. You know, what the hell? If you don't cover kicks very well in high school ball, you start at the 40. I mean, if you onside kick it, you give them the ball at midfield at best. I mean, sometimes still in the minus territory slightly. You know, it's not as big of a gamble as it is in the NFL or something. Like onside kick, give yourself a chance to possess that ball. Remember, gaining that possession is really important. If you get an onside kick, it is really more important statistically than a turnover, because both teams are going to get the ball the same amount of times in a game. And sometimes there's one difference, like one team had it 9 times and one had it 8. But if you get an onside kick, it could be one team had it 9 and the other one had it 7. That's a big difference. It's a big difference. Most of the time the same. Most of the time it's 9 and 9. But every now and then, depending on who got the ball last, it could be 9 and 8. But what if it could be 9 and 7? Now your chances of holding them to 14 points, Michael, are a hell of a lot better if they're only getting the ball thus time. So, and it gives your kids some confidence. The last one to me is the easiest one, except for maybe catching punts. Take some deep shots. You'd be amazed at how many of these teams I watch play now. And they're pretty decent throwing the quick game and the screens and all. I love quick game and screens, by the way. But you do have to every now and then throw the ball down the field. It will be okay. It's worth the risk for the reward to play action and throw the post as far as you can to somebody that might catch it. And you may say, Coach, we ain't got nobody to catch. You got somebody. We're not talking about Randy Moss. Just send somebody down the field that's a decent player and throw the ball to him. And it very well may be incomplete, but you might make a big play. You might be surprised. Take some deep shots. One of the biggest criticisms I give people if they ask me, if they want me to watch their film and they ask me or whatever, is like, throw the ball down the field. What are y'all doing? You know, you spend so much time on these plays that are gaining 3 and 4 yards of play, which are great, but you got to win some plays down the field. You got to get some big plays. And that is the way to do it. You got to scheme up some deep shots and give yourself a chance. But that's the 6 things that came to mind, Michael. Catch punts, go for it on 4th down, fake punt, run a trick play, kick an onside kick, take some deep shots. If you don't have all those things in, at least to do, and then call one of them occasionally. And I give you a little tip here. If you find yourself in a game that you're probably going to win anyway, or maybe unfortunately, you find yourself in a game you're probably going to lose anyway. That's a great time to do all these things. You know, show your team you can do it. See what it looks like. Give yourself a chance. Yeah. Don't be scared.